Thank you. The governor of Illinois has written to President Biden to say the federal government's lack of intervention and coordination at the border has created an untenable situation for Illinois. Does anybody outside of the White House think the immigration policy is working?
So here's what I can tell you. I just mentioned that the president requested $4 billion for supplemental funding to address what we're seeing at the border, right? And to manage what is happening currently at the southwest border more specifically. And Republicans continue to block us. They do. They continue to block us. And without Congress, the president has taken action. So the president has continued to try to put forth actions and ways to deal with what we're seeing at the border, and Republicans continue to block us.
John Kirby said yesterday that the White House prefers that Ukraine funding should be separate from anything connected to the border, but there does seem to be some momentum behind linking border security and Ukraine in the next funding package. What's the president's reaction to that?
Look, and we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week. The president, and we believe this, and we've seen this, and the president has taken action when it comes to delivering funding, record funding for the border security.
There's no red line against having a joint package that focuses
on the
border.
The admiral spoke to this yesterday. You know, he was very clear about this, and we want to continue to see the support for Ukraine. And when it comes to the border, we've taken action. We've taken action by getting record funding to deal with the border.
Is the White House on board with tying additional aid to Ukraine with border security, as some Republican lawmakers have suggested, as a way to resolve this?
We believe both are important, Peter. That's why in the supplemental request,
if it's tied in one, you would be satisfied if that's the vehicle that it happens?
we don't believe they should be tied, or one dependent on the other. But both are important. Both can be and both are important. And that's why in our supplemental request, in addition to some $12 to $13 billion for defense-related support, there's also $4 billion in there for border security enhancements.
Some House Republicans have raised this idea of linkage, the idea that they would support another round of funding for Ukraine, but only if there's additional funding for border security at our southern border. What would be problematic with that particular idea? After all, it is divided government, and you do need to have some sort of compromise with divided government.
I literally just answered this question about 10 minutes ago, so I'll say this. When it comes to the border, the president has provided record amount of support of funding to deal with the border. And Republicans do the opposite. So you could not have two different ways of moving forward in dealing with the border. And as it relates to Ukraine, I've said this over and over today, we have seen overwhelming bipartisan support, very public about that, and that's what we want to continue to see. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.